Hello and welcome to a special GWI program to update you on the water situation in Georgetown, more specifically the restoration of water distribution to customers in central Georgetown. As you may know, there has been a disruption, but now water has been restored to central Georgetown. And here with me to explain the situation and also to give us, to elaborate on the development of this situation, I have with me Mr. Lensworth Blair. He is the head of technical services within GWI, and also sitting beside him I have with me Mr. Sunil Baran. He is the head of field services. Hello guys and welcome to the program.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start with you, Mr. Baran. Could you give us a synopsis of the situation that took place? I know it's from Wednesday that we had a disruption. Could you walk us through what took place up to the restoration?
Surely, Liana. But first, before I go there, let me just say on behalf of GWI, I'd like to apologize to the residents of Georgetown for that prolonged disruption of water supply
Yes.
to the city. Sometime before Wednesday morning, around 11 o'clock, I received a call from Lensworth indicating that we have electrical fault at the Shelter Belt treatment plant. We subsequently engaged GPL to assist us in identifying this fault. It's late. It took us late in the evening. We did not manage to indicate the exact fault, but around 11 in the evening, we were able to restore some amount of supply to Georgetown. That supply was about half of our normal production. We usually operate at normal pressure of 20 pounds per square inch during normal distribution. At that half production, we were operating around 10 pounds per square inch. So in the next day, that's Thursday morning, GPL and GWI engineers continued to troubleshoot the system. During the course of that day, we managed to identify what was the problem, and that problem was identified in the high voltage switchgear that we have at our location. GPL continued their work with our engineers, and we have managed to restore that yesterday, Friday, around 5 o'clock. So at around 5:30 p.m., we were back to normal production into the city. Both our engineers from GPL side and GWI side worked throughout those nights to get some amount of relief to the customers within the city. Nevertheless, I must say also today we had a short stoppage in the Shelter Belt compound again. This was due to some old pipelines we have on our pumping station. That has nevertheless been rectified, and we're pumping as per normal production. Overall, that is what took place during those 3 days.
So the magnitude of the situation was much bigger than we usually have when we have small disruptions and so forth. That's what caused the prolonged disruption.
Definitely, this outage here, it's one of a kind. We never encountered this, and I think one of the main contributing factor to this is because Shelter Belt water treatment plant is an old facility. And as thus, we have old electromechanical equipment, old pipeline in the Georgetown city, old distribution pipelines. So age can be
A factor.
to this problem.
Okay, so Mr. Baran indicated that it was a unique situation. That's what caused the prolonged disruption. But Mr. Blair, sometimes when persons hear that the problem was electrical in nature, they tend to question if there was a backup generator that could be used or so forth. But could you tell us why it is not as simple as just a generator as a backup in some cases?
Yes, Liana. Let's understand that we have a number of redundancies in which we can still operate. But Shelter Belt has its own challenge because the system there is designed for 50 hertz, whereas all other facilities that we have are 60 hertz. So the pumps and the motors that are used, it depends on, you can't just take one from a 60 hertz and put it in a 50 hertz supply area because you have another challenge to deal with. And so even if we could have bring generators, which we have, they weren't configured for 60 hertz equipment. And so that too would have taken some amount of time in order to do. So our best option was to work along with our counterpart GPL, who I must say at this time did a wonderful job for the long hours they would have spent in order to bring that job to a close. Men have worked through the night continuously in order to have that job restored. And no doubt we would have tried, but our best effort could have only gave us about 50% of what we would normally do. And while we know that there are some other things that we can do, part of our strategic plan would be to have some engine-driven pumps and so on, so that even if the electrical system goes down, we can add some redundancies. And those plans are in place and would now have to be implemented, so that even with an electrical disruption, we can have a boost from our mechanical side, using engine-driven pumps.
So that will be in place in the near future, basically.
Yes.
If we were to encounter something else of this nature.
That is the hope. We have already outlined what can be done to do that. Some of the things are being acquired, some has already been acquired. And I believe that too would add even more redundancy to the system, so that no one thing will be able to stop the facility from running at its full potential.
Okay, so the disruption occurred on Wednesday, but a system was put in place later that day so that persons of Georgetown could access water even at a reduced level. Could you tell us what are the systems in place? I don't know who wants to take this question. What were some of the systems put in place?
Alright, if I can take the lead. So we managed to restore some amount of production from Shelter Belt at half the capacity.
Right.
But despite this reduced production, we know that most parts may also be affected. And we usually, for us, priority they are the schools, the hospitals, health centers, government institutions. So although were working at that reduced production, we did engage mobile tankers who usually transport water for us. So as soon as we recognized this, we engaged them, and they started to do water delivery to these respective agencies. Of course, we did receive calls on request, so we actually tried to fulfill all of those requests.
Okay.
So when we have these situations, we always have the standby system where we engage tankers to truck water to us to important organizations and institutions.
Because I could recall we had it in Region 3 and on the East Coast, and we had this system in place as well.
Definitely.
Right. So
it's a norm for us.
Right. It's always a backup plan.
That's it.
So actually, that brings me to my next question. So the question is there a general emergency plan in place when there's a disruption, or sometimes does it depend on the nature of the situation? Is there like a general plan, or it has to be identified per situation?
If I may answer, Liana, we always have a plan, and most of the times we're hoping not to get to the critical level before we bring our plans in place. But we, even at GWI, we will be investing, and we also, right now we're using contractors, but we will be investing in tankers too, so that we can be the first responders. And the other thing that, let me take up from where we left off just now, is that GWI has a list of all the, let's say, critical area government institutions as per region, as per pump station that is served within that locality. And so when we have these things, there is always this communication between GWI and the entity to make sure that we know what's the situation. Hospitals, schools, health centers, those are key, and restaurants, we hold them very high. Hotels too. So the plan would first be to get to those people first to figure out what is happening, and thereafter our contractors come into play. We do work too with others, because we always have our level service, our guys going out into the field to check the level service at various areas to know if it is what we would call somewhat, not really what we want, but acceptable.
Okay.
So that when they get into that stage, they can say, well, at this end of the network, we're getting so much of feet of water, and at least we know the customer served there can benefit or still have a proper shower and use of the
and this is even without a disruption. This is done routinely?
Yes, we have our schedule in which we would do that.
Okay.
Some areas is 2 weeks, some areas once a month we go and take the level of service.
Okay.
So we have the figures there, and when we have a problem, That is what actually we check. The other thing to note is that some areas, although it's served by a particular pump station, they can be served from other pump stations,
Right.
even with a reduced flow.
Mhm.
And that's why Georgetown, although we were so much severely affected, we could have gotten water from perhaps the Sophia plant,
Okay.
the Central Rumbell plant. So some persons would have still have a service. Of course, someone, in order to balance off the system, some person would have been affected in order for some people to have. But
Right.
all in all, we have those
Alternative.
scenarios and alternatives.
Okay. So you mentioned that they're checking every now and then to ensure the level of service is okay. And I want to encourage persons that we have our call center number. You know, if you're receiving any difficulty, any low pressure in your area, whatever the case might be, we have our call center. You can call 227-870-103 or 04, and we'd be happy to take your report so that we can go out into the fields and rectify that situation. So with the restoration of this service in Georgetown, Mr. Barron, could I know you indicated to me prior to the program that staff would be going out to ensure that it is to that acceptable level, because it takes a while to roll out to different areas. Could you just expound on that a bit for me?
Sure. Although we have restored the service yesterday afternoon, the service may not be back to normal for some of the customers. So what we usually do in cases like these is that we have persons checking at each one of the locations, say for example, their respective wards. We know our figures in a normal condition, what pressure the customer usually have. So when they do their checks now, and if there's any differences, we will know exactly. There is a challenge and we have to go after that to rectify it.
Okay.
So that will be a good indication for us on if the system is fully back to normal or we still have a challenge that's existing.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being on the program so that we can update the nation, especially our customers in Central Georgetown who maybe felt the brunt of it. But we are happy to say that the system is back and running, and we will be checking to ensure that it is in the perfect order and at that acceptable level. But before we close off, I offer you both some final words.
Sure. At least I would like to say something in my closing words. I would like to say thanks to GPL, the management and the staff who has worked tirelessly throughout those 2 nights, along with our staff who also support the GPL staff and our system to ensure that some amount of water came out of the shelter belt location. This is an experience for us. We've learned from it, and the plans that we have, as Lensworth indicated, and we have these plans we have the plans that has been integrated in the strategic business plan. So we have to execute the plan as quickly as possible. Once we get this done, we should reduce these challenges that we have. Not only the plans, but also the transmission and distribution networks. These are aged networks we're looking at. Some of the network is probably more than 80 years old.
Wow.
So we have to roll forward as quickly as possible to make this investment in Georgetown.
Okay. Any final words from you, Mr. Blair?
Yes, we know the problems that was the customers experience, and we understand we are users of the system too.
Right.
So just understand that GWI is still the company that will work hard to make sure that we restore every system that is broken. What I want to say also is that thanks for your patience. We know we receive countless calls. Sometimes the phone keep ringing so much you're distracted.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I know what is your feelings about the whole situation, and we're here to work for you, to serve you as we are paid to do, and we will continue to improve on our system. Every time we have a problem, it sends us back to the drawing board to understand what we could have done better, and this one is no different. This would have been perhaps the longest disruption that I've seen in Georgetown since I've been there, and despite that, we know where we can improve, and no doubt the plans were there, but it will be executed more in a faster way because we know the effect of doing so.
All right. You were listening to a program where we bring to you an update on the situation in Georgetown. Of course, there was a disruption on Wednesday last, but now the system is back in order. And I had with me on the program Mr. Sonaldad Baran, Head of Field Services, and Mr. Lensworth Blair, Head of Technical Services at GWI. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.